Good morning. Yesterday I put up a video. Well, it may not be yesterday by the time this video goes up, but the last video that I put up was working in my eco print journal, and I went through and showed you some Painty papers that I had made. And I call them Painty papers. I don't know why. It's just a habit. They could be called masterboards. They could be called drop paper. They could be called playtime papers, whatever you want to call them. But I just sit down and I take papers and I just create and doodle on them. And sometimes I use papers that already have paint on them that are started like this. I've wiped off my brush and then I add to it. So I would call that a Painty paper. So, but you call it whatever you want to make it yours. These are a lot of fun to do. They're very relaxing. They're very freeing. They take away any of that restraint that you might feel that you need to be perfect, because I don't do perfect here. I just like to have fun and I like to be loose and free. I want to work on one with you guys. I want to use a product that a lot of you already probably use, but some of you may say, I don't like these. I don't like to use these. And I started off feeling the same way. These are soft pastels. It's like a chalk. And when I first bought them, I thought, oh, the magical tool. You know, everything I bought was magical and everything was going to make everything I did perfect. But I found out real quick, soft pastels were very chalky, messy. They made your fingers messy. They got chalk everywhere on your table. And it smeared. And I didn't like that. So I put these away for a long time, didn't bother with them. Well, I was involved in a group called Gut Art for quite a few years where Myste Kirkling, I think is her last name. I always call her Misty. Was teaching, and her gut art classes were not designed to teach you how to do something, but they was teaching you how to learn your own way and find out for your own self how to do things through her guidance. When I started YouTube, when I found YouTube, even found out about YouTube, she was the first person I found, and I was looking for dolls. That's how I started this whole process. I was looking for dolls because that's what I had always done. And she had made some funky, cool dolls. And so I looked at her channel, and when I saw all the other things that she did, I was like, oh my gosh. That's how I got introduced to mixed media and everything. So I kind of look at her as just like my little beacon, you know, and I hate that she doesn't post as much as she used to. But anyway, she's the first person that I ever saw do any of this stuff, and the first person that I ever saw use some of these supplies. The first pencil I ever fell in love with, that I still love, she used, and it's the Kimberly, and it's the 9XXB, and it's real smudgy and dark, and so she made me fall in love with that. But I learned about gesso and things like that. Well, I saw her use spray fixative on top of her charcoal pencils so that she could leave her lines in place so she could work on top of them. So I thought, that's cool. So I learned how to do that. Well, then later on, when I started playing around with other supplies on my own and kind of went on my own because she shut down her group, I tried the soft pastels and I didn't like them. Well, then after I put them aside for a while, I thought, you know, there's no reason why I can't use these and use the same concept that she used for using charcoal. So I went back and drug these out, and I started using them with white gesso, and then I started using them with matte medium, and that sealed it in. And then I just started playing with water, and that worked too. So there's no reason to be afraid of these. These can be used and made into fun papers. So we're going to use these today. These are just a cheap set from, it's either Hobby Lobby or Michael's. I don't know who sells Reeves. I can't remember. Maybe Michael's? I'll show you a paper done with these. I think it's this one, in fact. This is done with soft pastels. And there's a little bit of oil pastel in here too, I think. And this is from just using water to seal my paper. I didn't use anything else. Today, I'm just going to take a piece of paper and we're going to play with our soft pastels and water. And this is the paper I'm going to use. It's just You Create drawing paper. It says heavyweight. It's not real heavy. I've said this every time I use this paper. It's like a step up from your copy paper out of your machine, for your fax machine or copy machine. I have used copy paper for this. I don't know if there's one in this stack. I may have already used it, but you can use the copy paper that's a lighter weight. This is copy paper. This is lighter weight, and this one you can see I got colors all the way through it. This I used, don't remember. I might have started with soft pastels and then I went over it with stencils and paint. I don't remember. I should write everything on the back what I used, but who's got time for that, right? It's a good paper to work on. I don't have any problems with it at all. And it's 9 by 12. And then I'm just going to take my pastels and open them up and see if I can keep you in frame. I'm standing today because, I don't know, I find it easier to do some of this stuff standing. I don't think I like standing, but I do. And I've got some brushes here. They're just regular brushes, whatever one you want to use. doesn't matter. And then all I start off doing, I just want color on the paper. I want to break that feeling between me and white paper. I'm not really intimidated by white paper as much as I used to be. But it's sort of to me like finishing a book where you don't want the ending to come because you don't want to have to start a new book, because the process of starting a new book, getting involved in the characters and all those things, it's like, I just like my old book and my old characters. So when I'm working on a paper like this, I get attached to the paper and I don't want it to be over. And when it's over, it's like, this is so plain, I gotta start all over. But the only way to get here is to start here. So that's what we're gonna do. And I'm just gonna take different colors of my chalk and I'm going to start putting them on my paper in different areas and just getting some color down. And then we're going to just start playing, building from here. This is easy, right? Just throw it on the page. Then I'm going to wet my brush and I'm going to start brushing my pastel into my paper. And if you love your brush, maybe you should use one you don't love, because I do scrunch around on this. And so I'm using an old brush. And I usually don't clean my brush in between. I just let it carry over. This depends on the color I'm using, but I do like to butt up into the other colors and kind of blend them in. And then when I get through, I'll add more when I need more. And I like some of the markings underneath. A lot of it gets hidden because I do so much on top of my paper, but some of these markings you'll see occasionally. And the paper gets really wet, but it holds up pretty good. I've not had any of this paper rip on me, but I'm not like ripping into it either. So let's get some blue in here. And the water mutes the color. And you can see that I didn't clean my brush, so it's kind of turning a little bit of a green gray, which is really pretty. And that's okay, because I love it. Okay. And then I might start taking some of my chalk and I might start just dabbing it on my brush and dropping some of the color into the paper like this, just to darken it. When I decided that I wasn't going to let any tool make me afraid anymore is when I started being more free with what I was doing, because the tool is just there to help me. It's not there to rule me. And when I decided those things, I just found it easier to get involved in my creating and not worry. I really don't worry about the fact that, oh, that's not used for that, you shouldn't do that. I don't care. This is my art room. I'm going to do what I want to do in here. It's the only place I get full free control of everything. So I'm going on with my bad self in here. And I'm hoping to encourage you and share with you and help you have fun and just play. That's what I'm hoping for. Okay, let's see about this other green. See if it's a little bit darker. Yeah. Just bring a little bit of that in there. You can splatter if you want to. It's not necessary because it's going to get covered up anyway. All right, I'm going to let this dry for a few minutes and then we're going to come in and bring some more color. But it's kind of wet right now and I want it to dry so I can go on top of this. Okay, this is dry enough. So I'm going to bring in some purples and some darker blues and things like that. And there's an orange in here. Let's do that. And here, what I did was I just drew some shapes and let them kind of color in. And so let's do that. All right, I'm gonna let this dry a little bit more, and then we'll come in and start doing some stuff on top of it. All right, this is a little bit drier. You could keep going with the soft pastels. I'm gonna take this red. I think I wanna play with this circle over here, and I think I'll go ahead and outline this circle. And then I think I will put some color in the center. Then let's do some wonky petals. And let's do a little bit of color in here. Let's get a wet brush. This one's a little smaller, so we'll work with that. I'm going to start in the center and just start bringing the color in. Getting the color to spread. And I won't cover the whole center because I want some of this over here. And I'll probably add some more in. Like I'll probably bring, I'll probably bring some of the orange from the circle into it. Go around and then bring it in a little bit. Okay, I'm going to let this dry for a minute, and then we'll continue layering, adding, and just keep playing. Now if you want to, you can keep bringing in your soft pastels, or you can bring in a pencil or something to help you with a guideline of what you want to do. And this is a mechanical pencil. I like to use my regular pencil too. I would just come in and start. I probably wouldn't do this early, but I'm just giving you an idea what to do. Just go around my petals. And then I would want something down here, either a stem or leaves or something. So maybe I would consider the bottom of the flower having one of those little leafy things. And I don't want it perfect. You notice nothing here looks perfect. Okay, we'll let that dry for a minute. Okay, let's move over here. All right, so here's where you decide, do I want to keep playing with the soft pastels? Do I want to keep layering them? Do I want to make them more vibrant? Do I want to mute them? And what I want to do is I want to take my pencil and I'm just going to kind of bring out what's on the page, kind of like what I started to do over here. So I'm just going to take my mechanical pencil, do some doodling, and then once I finish my doodling, I probably will go get some watercolor pencils or some distress paint or something like that, and then just keep building up my layers. When I go to the next step, I'll let you know. Okay, I've done a little doodling, and if you want to stop with soft pastels, you could stop right here if you wanted to. I'm not completely happy yet, so I'm going to keep going, but you could take your Stabilo all pencil and you could bring these out even more, like, let me do a little bit so you can see. I don't want to do a lot because that's not what I want to do yet. Let's say you wanted to make your flower stand out more. You just use your Stabilo all, go over your pencil lines just a little bit. You don't have to be exact. And then just wet the Stabilo all. And then your flowers are going to get darker. You're going to have more stand out, but that's not what I'm really ready to do yet. So I'm going to put that back. You could also take your white China marker and start bringing in some white lines to accent what you're doing. It's hard to see, but I can see it from this close, so that's another option. Bring it in here, bring some color in, and just adds to it. But I'm not ready to do that yet, so I'm gonna get some watercolor pencils, and we're gonna play with that first. Okay, I have a bunch of colored pencils, and I've got them all strung out on my table. They're different brands. They are General's Kimberly, there's Faber-Castell, Aquarelle, so there's several different brands laying around here. And so I just wanted to choose from the colors I've got here and just kind of highlight my flowers and things and wet them and bring out the color. And then I'll decide if I want to bring in some distress paint or some inks or something like that on top. And I just want to do the same thing I would do with a regular pencil, is hold my watercolor pencil a little bit odd and go around my flower. And then I'm going to take my paintbrush that I've lost as soon as I find, oh, there it is. It's in with the reds. And I'm just going to highlight the color I just put down. So that's all I'm doing. When I finish that, we'll decide if we're going to do anything else. All right, I'm gonna let this dry for a few minutes, and then I think I'm gonna bring some watercolor or some distress paint and put it on top of my layers. But I'm really loving this. I could leave this just like this. It's so different from this one. It's beautiful, and that's all we are after. Something pretty and something fun, and to stop being afraid of the supplies that we thought would be wonderful and we feel like deceived us when we started using them. And really we just were afraid to try them. Okay, so let me dry this and then I'll come back. I'm gonna put my watercolor pencils away. All right, I have watercolor here, I have distress paints here, but I'm gonna start with some of my distress paints. And these don't come out the way they're supposed to up the top because I don't use them enough probably. But I use them this way. I open the lid and I mix them with water. I don't know if you're supposed to do that. I don't really care. But I'll put a little bit of water down here. My paper's definitely still damp. Then I'll dip my brush in and then I'll just spread it around. And I'll just use the rest of my paint on my brush on here if I have any left over. And I have lines drawn. You saw me draw some lines. I usually don't do the lining that early. Sometimes I do, but It was more to show you you could stop right there. So I'm kind of going over my lines, and I'll probably have to redo them. And I'm okay with that. This is just going over the soft pastels, and it's not going to be the same as if you just use one or the other by itself. And that's what's so beautiful. It's just so interesting and fun and free. And I've got some shapes on here. I'll just fill in the shapes, or you can leave them. This is why I said this might be so fun for you guys, because there's no rules. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do, and you can do everything that you want to do. That's what's so great about it. I'm holding my brush very loosely. I don't want a perfect line. All right, you can see some of my paint is dripping out of my petal over here. That's okay. Just let it drip back. I think that's all I'm going to do with my distress inks. So I'm going to let this dry really well before we go any further. I'm going to go ride my bike, get some exercise, and this will be really dry by the time I get back, because when I get back it'll be lunchtime, and then we will finish up our paper. I'm loving this. This is just wonderful, and I've had a really great time, and I used a product that used to terrify me. All right, I'll be back in a little bit. All right, I'm back from my bike ride, and I've had lunch, and I'm having some tea. And when I got my tea, it reminded me that the last video I was having tea, I pulled the tea bag out, put it on this paper, and I said, if I can remember, I'll show you what it looks like as the tea stain happens. And I remembered, I can't believe it. So if you saw the last video, you'll see that this tea stain was here, and I just set the tea bag down there, and that's the stain that left. It spread all the way out to here. So I've got some more cute stains on my paper and a tea bag to use. Okay, so let's get back to this paper. It's dry. I can run my hands over it and nothing. I washed my hands since lunch, and so there's nothing on there. And I love this. I think it's really pretty. So I think I might bring in some pencil, and I don't think I'm going to bring in watercolor. I might change my mind, but let me get my tea bag out of the way, get a pencil, and we'll just do some doodling. Okay, I think I'll sit down for this because I'm tired. It was hot today on my ride, and I pushed it a little harder today, so I'm trying to build my energy back up and my strength. All right, so let's just go ahead and use the mechanical pencil, and I'm just going to go around anything that jumps out that I just feel like going around. I'm going to switch hands. I'm just going to write a few words. That says, not afraid of soft pastels. Okay, I just wrote some words on there. I was going to use my black Stabilo all, but I don't think I really want to on this one. I think I'll let it go. And I'm just going to bring in the China marker and bring in some white marks. I want something in the center of this flower. I think I'll just bring my distress paint back in and just put little dabs in the center of the flower. I'll get my brush wet so it's not completely saturated with the distress. I'm just going to put some dots. I just want to clean my paint off the brush. So I wet it and I'm just rolling it in some areas just to clean off and use the rest of the distress ink. Distress paint, it's not ink. And I want to wet this area here and spread it out a little bit more because I don't want that dark a line. And my feather's wrapped in there. I need to use that feather. So that's all I'm going to do to this page. And it all started with the soft pastels, and you can still feel it because I didn't cover all of the soft pastel, and the water helped blend it into the page, and I'm not getting any off on my finger. I didn't use any sealer, I didn't use any fixative, nothing like that. So I think we're all good. It's not the same as this one, but I love it just the same. I think it's really cool. And I could cut these flowers out individually and use them on something, or I could just cut sections of the paper, but you know, just block off an area. Oh, that's so pretty right here. This little square right there. I wonder if I have a square frame. I don't. Hang on a second, let me see what my frames look like. I don't have a square mat. These are my test mats that I like to see what looks good and what doesn't when I'm playing around with my papers. See, I love this. I could frame that just like that. This one, I really like a square look, so let's pretend this is square. About that size. There. Isn't that pretty? That's just so pretty. I need to get some more of these mats. I want to get a bunch of different sizes and shapes so that I can do that testing. Because some of these I would like to maybe frame, I don't know. I really want to copy them before I start cutting them up because I'm really getting attached to my painting papers. And I usually just cut them up. Like right now I could just make some bookmarks or something, but I'm not going to because I love this so much. All right, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll give it a try. Drag out those supplies you maybe are a little intimidated by. Just use them. Just try it. The worst that could happen on a piece of paper is you hate it and you could just cover it up with paint. But if you keep building layers and keep adding and keep blending, you can come up with some really pretty things. And none of these papers look the same. None of them. This is the one we kind of started off designing the other one as, because this one started off with soft pastels too. But none of these look the same. These are all either oil pastel, soft pastel, paint, inks, markers, a combination of all of those things. Stencils, just a combination. This one is just paint and gesso, I think. And I know if you've seen these, you're probably like, I don't need to see these again, but somebody may be new and may not have seen them. You never know. So I want to show the new. Okay, so then we have one more to add to our stack from today. All right, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I will see you again soon. I hope you have a great whatever it is, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.